Hello YouTube, welcome to the channel. It is your host Stage G Samurai here, and today I'm here to bring you guys another part to What If Deku Was Shisui's Reincarnation. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this part. I'm really excited to bring it to y'all, so here it is. Also, if you guys won't mind, I hope you guys can please have it in your heart to hit the subscribe button. And if you are subscribed, I thank you very much. Your support is always appreciated. And while you're at it, why don't you guys comment down below any what if ideas, as I usually like looking through the comments whenever I have some breaks. I know some of you guys see me going through the comments, liking some of your posts. In fact, I'm pretty sure I liked most of them, if not all. But still, I do like going and scrolling down at all your guys' comments, and I do appreciate it. So if you guys want to, you guys can comment down below, send your what if ideas. I'll check them out. If I like them, I'll post them. If I don't, well, you guys can always just come up with another idea that I would like. But overall, thank you guys so much for your support. And either way, I believe it's time for us to begin this what if. So with that being said, let's get started.
You're never gonna make it, you're not good enough. There's a million other people with the same stuff. You really think you're different? Man, you must be kidding. Think you're gonna hit it, but you just don't get it. It's impossible, it's not probable, you're irresponsible. Too many obstacles, you gotta stop it, yo. You gotta take it slow, you can't be a pro. Don't waste your time no more. Who the fuck are you to tell me what to do?
Alright guys, let's begin this what if, but before we do so, I want to give a little bit of a warning. If you guys can ignore any background noises, that'll be very appreciative, as there will be background noise. But if you guys can ignore it, then I would really be appreciative of it. Another thing is, if you guys hear my voice change, or if you guys see a change in my audio, that's mostly due to the fact that I'll be editing some of the audio out, mostly due to the fact of my stuttering, or maybe because of the fact that I make a mistake on what I'm explaining. But overall, if you guys hear that change, please ignore it as well. Just focus on the story, and trust me, things will be much more enjoyable. And with that being said, and with this warning now being given, it's time for us to begin this what if. So with that being said, let's begin. So we now kick off this what if where we last left off, the apprehension test. We will see Aizawa as he would arrive, and he would give them the reminder that this will be their apprehension test. This will be to find out exactly what level they are. However, right before they go any further, Aizawa does give them a small little warning. You're hoping to become heroes after 3 years here, and you think it will be all fun and games, right? Well, the one with the lowest score across all 8 events will be judged hopeless and will be expelled. Now this will cause many of the students here to be afraid and actually tensed up, while Deku, who just being Deku, would actually have a small smile on his face. After all, he enjoys the challenge, and in his past life he has been on way higher stakes and has experienced way more stress. So with this was nothing. So with that being said, the test will then begin. The first one up will be Bakugou, of course, who ends up shooting off a ginormous explosion while yelling out, the words of die. In turn, this will cause Bakugou to get a very high score, surprising everyone, while Deku is just looking at the kid as if he was mental. I swear, has his parents never thought about giving him a mental evaluation? Cause that's not normal, Deku would say as he raises an eyebrow looking at Bakugou. So after this, we can now move forward with the next following events. So after this, we will then see the rest of the tests go through, many kids getting good scores, many kids getting bad scores. Deku was currently doing really good, as even without using his so-called quirk, Deku was moving through the ranks pretty highly, until eventually it came to the ball throwing test. So eventually all the students would line up, as this is when Aizawa would then give them the reminder that this was the final event, and depending on their score, some of them will be expelled. Now this would cause many of the students who did not do that good at the test to begin to shake a little bit, as they did not want to be expelled from UA. But Deku, after reading Aizawa and just his emotions in general, he could already understand that Aizawa was lying. So without any hesitation, Deku would choose to go first. Now all the kids would then line up as we can just wait and see how Deku's gonna do. There's no way he can beat my score. There's no way, Bakugou would say. So throughout all the other events, Bakugou had tried his hardest to beat Deku by trying to be the very first and be at the very top of his class. Unfortunately, Deku outclassed him in everything. Bakugou couldn't keep up with him. And to make sure that, salt got rubbed on the wound, Deku had beaten him and gotten at least twice better, he had at least gotten 2 points over him. Pretty much showing Bakugou that, hey, if I wanted to, I could beat you in an instant. Or at least that's how Bakugou would see it. Really, in actuality, Deku was not really trying that hard, as if he did, he could just blow the record out of proportions, but he didn't want to really go that far yet. As Deku just saw this as nothing more than a mock exam, nothing really serious, nothing more, nothing less. So with this, we'll now turn back to the present, as Deku would then do his ball throw. He would shoot it out with amazing strength as his muscles would tense up, and the ball would be shot out almost like a rocket, surprising everyone in class. At this, Aizawa would be watching all this, and this time he didn't even bother activating his quirk. And the reason for that was pretty simple. Deku did not use his quirk. However, that did not mean he wasn't pissed off. As the ball would be shot out through the air, Aizawa would then say that the score was invalid, surprising all the students. Oh, and how come? Simple, you didn't try your hardest out there. Listen, I don't really care, but you're going to the top school here. You're going to become a hero. So unless you're going to be giving it all you got, then get out the school while you can. Now this will cause a dead silence to fall around everyone in class, while Bakugou was actually enjoying the fact that Deku this time was getting punished. However, to their surprise, Deku would then give him a smile, patting his head a little bit, apologizing. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disrespect you like that. Alright, I'll give it my all. At this, now this will get everyone's attention, as that ball was already like blowing past anyone else's record besides, Uraraka, because she activated her quirk. But now they wondered how far would Deku get it this time. Now at this, Aizawa would then give Deku a ball, and he would tell Deku to give it his all this time or he will be expelled. Deku just nods his head, already ignoring Aizawa's threat, as he would then concentrate. At this, Aizawa wouldn't see it, as Deku would slowly open his eyes, and that split instant, Deku's eyes flashed red. At this, he couldn't really exactly see what was going on. All he saw was a weird looking eye and these like black markings on it. However, it was at that split instant, as he does, the ball would then elect with electricity, surprising him, as Deku would then toss it out at full speed. Now this will cause a ginormous shockwave to blow back everyone, as most of the kids in class 1A are barely even standing, while others are just like sent flying. Bakugou, who watched it all, was in a daze, as he couldn't even believe what he was seeing right now. Now, last time, if you saw, like when Deku threw the ball last time, it was like a rocket. This time, it was like a legit thunderbolt, as Deku's ball just vanished, like there was nothing left of it. At this, Aizawa would be surprised as he would look at the score, and to his shock, Deku had beaten his record, but this time he beat it 15 times higher than he did last time. Aizawa would be very impressed with Deku, complimenting him, as he would just think in his mind like this kid's potential is off the chart, and he could already see that this kid was going to become a monster in the future. So now that we can move on from this, we can finally see that after doing all these tests, Aizawa would then reveal to them that all of the tests and the exams were all really just a hoax, or more or less him telling them that if they get the lowest score, they're going to be expelled. Yeah, that was just a hoax. Now this will surprise everyone, as they were legit like trying their hardest not to fail. However, eventually Aizawa would then tell them that from now on that he will be their homeroom teacher, and that he will be expecting to see them now in UA. So with that, everyone will then go their separate ways, with Deku just going off with Uraraka and Ida, as they had slowly became friends during this point and are now like just casually hanging out. As with this, we can now move on to the next following events, this being the battle trial. Now at this, the arc kicks off pretty normal, with Deku just casually being at home, as he was enjoying some tea while talking to his mother about everything that's been happening. And while the two are enjoying their time together, this is when Inko would actually tell Deku that she had received a package. Now at this, Deku would then be taken in by Inko, as she shows Deku where she left it, as she left it actually right under the stairs, and when Deku sees it, his eyes actually glow a little bit in excitement. There will be a very highly, it looked like a suitcase right there. However, that suitcase looked like it cost a lot of money in general, but Deku already knew what was inside of it, as he then grabs the suitcase, thanking his mother, as he says that this was something that he's been waiting for in a long time. At this, Inko wondered what it was, but Deku just tells her that she will show it to her one day. However, until then, he's going to keep it a secret for now. So with that, Inko would allow it, hoping that it was nothing dangerous, but Deku would just shake his head, telling her that everything was fine, as he would then head off to his room, where he actually opens the briefcase where we see it. At this, Deku would then have a smile on his face, as this is where we're now going to be moving forward again. So now flashing to the next day, it was finally time for the battle trials, as at first the day kicked off as normal, as of course Deku will be sitting down at his table, hanging out with Uraraka and Ida, as they were discussing what was going to happen for today. However, while this was happening, this is when suddenly Alma would then burst into the room, acting like he was a totally normal guy. Now this would cause the class to erupt in excitement, as this is when Alma would then give them the idea of the battle trial, telling them that this is a way to test out how strong they are, as well as also, promoting teamwork and cooperation. Now, this will cause everyone to be excited for it, as he tells them that this was also an opportunity for them to put on their hero suits, which causes Deku's eyes to actually slightly flash towards the Sharingan for a little bit. mostly due to the fact that he was excited for it. Hey, he may be mature and everything, but he has the right to act like a child once in a while, alright? But moving on, we can now move forward once again. So eventually everyone would then arrive as people were there excited as they had put on their hero costumes and they were looking good. Among those people, we will see Deku as he would currently right now be amongst the crowd and he'll be in his own hero suit. Now his Deku hero suit would look quite assassin-like as currently right now he was wearing a hoodie with a mask on it, as well as the fact that he's in like it's entirely a onesie completely. It's similar to an Anbu gear except it looks more modern. Not like how it did in the like Shinobi world. It looks more modern in this one, as the colors will also be black and red, and while doing so, Deku would also actually end up carrying a katana right at his side. Now, as Deku was, putting the finishing touches on his costume, this is when Uraraka and Ida would then walk over to him, actually impressed by his costume. Wow, Deku, you look like a real-life assassin with this one. You're not going to plan to hurt anyone, are you? Uraraka would say in a joking manner, to which Deku shakes his head before suddenly getting serious. I might. At this will cause Ida and Uraraka to jump back a little bit, but Deku wouldn't laugh it off, telling them that he was joking, causing them to also begin to laugh a little bit. As eventually, now that everyone got acquainted with their costumes, it was finally time for them to begin the battle trials, as the teams were set, Deku and Uraraka, and Bakugou and Ida. Now these two would go up against each other, causing Bakugou to gain a rage fit and excitement, as he tells Deku that he was going down and that he will destroy him. But Deku completely ignores Bakugou and instead talks to Uraraka as he begins to talk about his suit and pretty much the design process for it, as right now he was completely ignoring Bakugou, causing the man to be pissed off. As All Might would tell all the students to gather around and prepare for the battle, Deku, Uraraka, Bakugou, and Ida would then be moved towards their separated areas as the battle was going to begin. So after a while of gathering everyone and making sure everyone was okay, All Might would then begin the match. Begin. Instantly, Bakugou would charge out of the room, ignoring Ida as he rushes towards Deku's location. You think you can ignore me? You think you can come here and act as if you're going to be anything else? Damn you, Deku, you're nothing. You're not going to be number one. It's going to be me, Bakugou would shout as he rushes towards Deku's location. And while doing this, Deku can sense Bakugou approaching. Now, due to this, he tells Uraraka to go on ahead, telling her to leave him behind. Don't worry. I'm just gonna have a small little chat with the old childhood friend. At this, Uraraka did not like this, but she tells Deku that she believes in him, and she tells him good luck in the fight. Deku would then give her a mature smile, waving her goodbye, as this is when, as he does, an explosion will then appear right in front of him. Rushing out the mist, we will see Bakugou as he then throws an explosion at Deku's face, which causes Deku to do nothing more but weave out the way. Come on, Bakugou, it's been multiple years now. Haven't you grown up by now? At this, Bakugou tells Deku to shut up. I already know what you're after. I already know why you're doing all this. You think you're better than me? You're just a quirkless nobody. A pebble that I can stomp on whenever I want. At this, Bakugou would then throw multiple explosions at Deku, who ends up dodging and weaving out the way. While doing so, Deku tries talking to Bakugou. What's with all this anger? What did I even do to you? I'm pretty sure the only thing I ever did was try to become your friend, and that was it. At this, Bakugou tells Deku to shut up as he throws explosion after explosion, and Deku is honestly trying to get to the bottom of this. Why is Bakugou the way he is? But unfortunately, it seems as if Bakugou's the only way to communicate with him is through violence. So Deku sighs as with no choice begins to combat against Bakugou. At this, Bakugou throws a roundhouse explosion at Deku. However, Deku would end up weaving out the way and casually grab Bakugou's arm before flipping him on his back. Bakugou would slam to the ground hard, coughing up a little bit of spit. However, right before he thinks he's done, unfortunately he isn't, as Deku will then once again re-pick up Bakugou, and this time slam him into the ground once again. Bakugou will be pissed off as he uses his explosion to get himself back up, as he throws a kick at Deku, only for Deku to, duck out the way. While doing so, Deku will then sweep Bakugou's leg, causing him to fall to the ground once again. However, as he does so, Bakugou ends up using this opportunity to throw an explosion at Deku just as he does the sweep kick. At this, Deku gets, of course, hit by the explosion, or at least that's what Bakugou thinks. And while doing this, Bakugou uses his explosion as a rebound to flipped over and regain his balance. Are you finally seeing your place, Deku? You're nothing to me. At this, Bakugou would wait at a response, but to his surprise, no response was heard. At this, Bakugou was already laughing, thinking that he already finished off Deku, while All Might was actually wondering where the kid was. There's no way that explosion could have actually, completely tore him to shreds. This kid, he might actually need an evaluation, as now All Might was already thinking about stepping in. However, just as he does, this is when Bakugou will then begin to gag. At this, Bakugou was not moving as he was just casually staring at the ginormous amount of smoke while gagging. He couldn't breathe. What's going on? Bakugou would say, as he couldn't even move his body. He was trapped. At this, All Might was confused, as currently through his screen, Bakugou was fine. In fact, he looked perfectly healthy. Instead, he was just staring there in a daze, not moving at all. However, while he was seeing this, he would then hear footsteps, as walking out the smoke will be Deku. He would be completely uninjured, not even a small bit of dust on his clothing. However, there was one thing that everyone else could see, and it was the fact that Deku's eyes had changed to a different color. Red. As we see the Sharingan currently being activated, as Deku was staring directly at Bakugou. As we turn to Bakugou's mindscape, we see the boy, as he currently right now is drowning in the ocean itself. Bakugou was trying his hardest to swim up to surface, but he couldn't. It was as if the weight itself was pushing him down. What's going on? How am I here? This doesn't make any sense. Bakugou would say, as he tries his hardest to hold in as much oxygen as he can, but unfortunately it wasn't working. At this, he didn't even remember how he got here. One minute he was looking for Deku to see if he had been injured, or better not, if he'd been put down by it. But unfortunately, as soon as he did, all he saw was a flash of red, and the next minute he was inside the ocean, drowning. At this, Bakugou tries his hardest, even using his explosion, but that's when he then realizes he can't use his quirk. My quirk. What happened to it? Where did it go? At this, Bakugou will be staring at his hands in horror as he tries swimming to the top, but it was not working. And as he does, Bakugou would then eventually end up seeing multiple memories flash before him. It was Bakugou's life in general, as he would see multiple memories of his life flashing before his eyes, and that's when Bakugou realized, holy crap, I'm gonna die. At this, Bakugou tries his hardest swimming to the surface, but it was endless. The weight was pushing him down, there was nothing he could do. As Bakugou was drowning, he legit couldn't do anything about it, cursing over and over again, saying that this wasn't the way he was supposed to go. However, just as Bakugou would think this is when the scene would then change. Bakugou would then see himself in the future. Right now, he was no longer in the deep ocean. Right now, he was currently looking at himself as he will be worshipped for being the #1 hero. However, instead of being the worship that you think of, Bakugou was actually getting scorned. He was walking around with his head held up high as many people would be insulting him. Is that the #1 hero? One of them would say. However, this is when her friend would then get in the way. Don't be near him, alright? That guy, he's dangerous. Let's stay away from him. At this, Bakugou, or should I say the younger version of him, would be there listening to all these people's comments. They were all pretty much hating on the guy. At this, everyone would be saying that Bakugou was nothing, that he couldn't compare to All Might, which caused the young Bakugou to be pissed off. I am better than him. I will be better than him. At this, Bakugou wouldn't see it, as many flashes of his older self would then pass by him. He would see as his older self would be saving people, however, at the same time, he would be causing mass destruction himself. Each time a villain will come by, he would just legit destroy the villain, but at the same time, he would cause ginormous amount of damage to the cities itself. Many heroes are there to try to fix the mess he created, and his one excuse is that he's the #1 hero and that he took care of the job. Bakugou would see as his name would be popped up as one of the most controversial topics during this time. He would see multiple images of his future that were just happening. He would see everything that went good for him, all of it to turn bad. As in the beginning, Bakugou was #1, but eventually as time passes, Bakugou's reputation plummeted. He was pretty much disgusted by the whole public, and everyone pretty much hated him. All due to the fact that thanks to his pride and his arrogance, he couldn't truly be the #1 hero. As Bakugou will be there watching everything, he'll be cursing over and over again. In fact, he'll be cursing Deku, as he can already understand that Deku was the one showing him all this. Damn it, this is not how it's going to turn out to be. You hear me? There's no way it would turn out like this. However, as Bakugou tries to justify everything, this is when suddenly Deku's voice will then boom in. No, Bakugou, this is how everything was going to turn out. This path, the way you're acting, all it proves to this ending right here. This will be your fate. At this, Deku will then walk out as he currently will be staring down at Bakugou, just as Bakugou ended up returning back to, the battle area. At this, Bakugou will be there panting a little bit as the effects of the Genjutsu had taken quite a toll on his body. At this, he'll be looking at Deku, glaring at him while Deku was just casually walking towards him. That will be your future, Bakugou. If you don't set aside that pride and your arrogance, if you don't learn to mature and realize that the world doesn't revolve around you, that will be the fate that you will wait to see. Is that what you want to be? Is that the so-called #1 hero that you're planning to be? Bakugou hearing this would curse Deku over and over again, telling him that he was wrong, that that would not happen, it would never happen. But unfortunately, seeing that Bakugou wasn't listening, Deku could do nothing more but send him a pitiful smile. I wished and hoped that maybe showing you this, you would have actually learned and actually grow, but I guess only time will tell. I'm sorry, Bakugou, but for the next following years, you're going to be hit hard with reality, and you're soon going to realize exactly how outmatched you truly are. The only way for you to compete is to evolve, and unless you're willing to adapt and actually mature for it, you'll be swallowed up. You'll be forgotten. So with this, Bakugou Katsuki, prepare for your next following months here. Because trust me, things are about to go very downhill for you. As Bakugou would hear this, he would then get pissed off as he tries using his grenade gauntlet to throw a ginormous explosion at Deku. However, just as he does, this is when suddenly the bell would then ring, telling him that Deku's team had just won. Bakugou's eyes will go wide as he will see Deku staring at him with his red eyes before suddenly they'll return back to normal, with Deku walking past Deku emotionlessly. With Bakugou just being there completely stunned, not able to do anything. I lost again. So we now move on to after the events, as after that Deku's team would be complimented as everyone will be talking about how cool everything was. Also, Deku would actually question a lot by his classmates, wondering what he did to Bakugou, but Deku just says that it really meant nothing, saying that he just had a small little talk with Bakugou, which caused Bakugou to just be a little bit surprised by it. Now, this caused many of them to look at Deku weird, but they decided to let it pass, while All Might, he was actually trying to question Deku himself, wondering exactly what occurred in there, with Deku actually giving All Might a reasonable answer. Nothing much, I just gave Bakugou a wake-up call. Hopefully he will learn to take it. If not, well then, we'll have to wait and see then. At this, All Might didn't know for sure what Deku did, but he at least know one thing. Whatever he did, hopefully it will help out Bakugou, as he himself can see that the boy really needed some counseling or needed to be checked for his mentality, because that was not normal. As for Bakugou himself, after exiting out the building, he was completely silent. He was muted. As after that, he'll be sitting there watching the display of his other classmates, and he will see some amazing feats of strength. For example, like Todoroki, as you'll see the boy completely freeze the entire building, surprising him, causing him to also feel even more terror. As slowly but surely, Deku's words were slowly becoming true. As everyone in the class begins to show how they can work together, as well as the fact that they show how they're adapting and evolving, learning, and Baku is just there watching all of this, unable to say anything. As eventually the day would then pass, Bakugou would just be there as he would be leaving the academy. Luckily, none of them really sustained any injuries, as the most that Bakugou got was a slight headache, and that was it. As for the other students, luckily for them, they didn't get too injured as well, so overall, things went pretty good for them. As after this, we can now move on to the next following days. For the next following days, a few shenanigans ended up happening. Number one, there was an event where pretty much a bunch of reporters were at the front gate. Luckily, Ida had told the class and told them to remain calm. However, this will cause many teachers at Class 1A to wonder how exactly did they get in. It also makes them suspect that they might have a rat. While doing this, we also have another thing is the fact that Bakugou during this time was really silent. Now, not much was really known why he became really silent. In fact, not much was really known at all exactly why he was acting. But instead of being like boisterous and mocking everyone, he became more docile and doesn't really speak much. However, he does end up throwing a small little bit of arrogant comments here and then. As after all this, we can now continue on where we are at the present, the USJ. Now, currently right now, all the students will be sitting down in excitement at the fact that they are now heading off to the USJ for some training. Now, at this point, everyone was sitting down and everyone has their hero costumes prepared and ready to go. Now, Deku would be there listening to some music as he was enjoying his time, and while doing so, he would be sitting by Uraraka and Ida as they're currently talking about what they're going to do over there. And while doing so, they did end up bringing up the idea of quirks, and this is where Sue actually ends up asking Deku a question. You know, Midoriya, your quirk isn't really well known amongst us. What exactly is it? After all, based on your strength, I would assume it's like All Might's, but at the same time, we've been catching you do some very weird things with it. So what exactly is your quirk? Now, this would cause everyone in the bus to be silent and actually look at Deku, and Deku would be there with a smile on his face as he then tells them that his quirk is a mystery. And after that, Deku would then go back to listening to music. At first, everyone would be there waiting in suspense, wondering what Deku was going to say, until finally they ended up realizing he was not going to say anything, causing him to sigh. I guess Deku will just continue being a mystery, although one day we'll see and find out what exactly that quirk is. However, that's what they all thought in their mind, unknowing the fact that Deku just didn't have a quirk. But moving on. So we now see as Class 1A would arrive at the USJ, as soon as they arrived, they end up seeing that, well, as soon as they arrived, it seemed like this area was ginormous. It was bigger than they expected. And while doing so, they end up meeting the Hero 13, and this is where they begin to discuss everything about the events. However, just as they were in the middle of discussing though, this is when Deku wouldn't feel it. Something was off. At this, he would then see a portal then open up as suddenly floods of villains begin to come, one of them including Shigaraki, and another one being Kodagiri. At this, Aizawa would then tell 13 to get the children back, as Kirishin would then ask, "Hey, is this a part of the exam?" However, this is when suddenly Aizawa would then shake his head. "No, we're under attack. Stay back, alright?" With those parting words, Aizawa would then jump into action as he'll begin to combat the villains. Now, while doing so, Deku would then sense a presence behind him, as quickly as he did, he ended up vanishing and punching the person behind him. However, this is when suddenly his fist would then phase right through him. Well, I guess some of you guys actually have the instincts to keep up. Unfortunately, that won't work for someone like me. At this, Deku would then look into the eyes of Kodagiri, who had warped behind them, as this is when 13 then tells Deku to stand back. The other students wouldn't watch as she tries to activate her quirk, as she would activate the power of Black Hole, but unfortunately, this will end up backfiring on her, as Kodagiri will open a portal right behind her, causing her to use her quirk against herself. This would put 13 in bad condition. However, Deku would use this opportunity. Since Kodagiri was actually laughing at the dismay of the heroes, Deku would activate the power of the Sharingan. He would look directly into Kodagiri's eyes, and in that split instance, Kodagiri would then feel something was off. As this is when suddenly all the students of Class 1A would then turn vicious. They start attacking him out of nowhere. And this causes him to try activating his quirk, but this is when, as he tries to activate a portal, his portals will not really do anything at all. What's going on? At this, he begins to realize as each one of the students began to jump him that he was unable to do anything. And if there was one thing he was paying attention about, was that at the very end of all the students attacking him, there was one student who was staying behind, and his eyes were glowing red as he stares at him. Is it him? As he tries to find out what was going on though, this is when suddenly we then turn back to the present. As we see currently right now, Deku was casually staring at Kodagiri, as Kodagiri was currently in a daze, not moving at all. "Wait, what happened to him?" one of the students would ask. At this, the rest of them would turn to Kodagiri just as Bakugou and Kirishin would then tackle him onto the ground, snapping him out of his daze. However, he already realized that he was restrained. "Don't move an inch or I blow your head off, you bastard," Bakugou would say as he casually ended up letting off a few warning explosions. Now seeing that Kodagiri was taken care of, Deku would then rush towards the gate with top speeds, and as he does, he ends up instantly cutting it up with his katana, opening it up for Ida to go through. "Ida, go. Send off his signal and let the heroes know." At this, Ida would of course be a little bit reluctant about it, but after some encouragement from his classmates, he then dashes off at full speed, telling them that he'll be back with help. However, while this was happening, this is when Deku would then turn back to Aizawa, and this is when the rest of the students, including him, would then see it, a horrifying sight. Aizawa, who currently right now was fighting against the other villains, would currently right now be overwhelmed by a Nomu. It was overpowering him, and he was able to do nothing about it. The rest of Class 1A will be watching there in horror as they couldn't believe what was happening, and thanks to this, Kodagiri would then begin to try to activate his quirk. Unfortunately, someone was currently pissed off. "Damn it, I had everything under control. Things went a little bit too far. Should have taken it more seriously. Well, at least I can make up for it right here, right now." At this is when suddenly Deku would then stare at Kodagiri, causing the man, just as he was about to activate his quirk, to pass out. And while using this opportunity, Deku would then end up grabbing his katana as he dashes forward at top speeds. Now, to villains, they were currently right now watching as I get beaten up, and they were smiling about it. But however, in that split instance, they would then feel a ginormous amount of pain and fall unconscious. As the rest of the students in Class 1A would be surprised, as a long line of villains were forming, about to climb up the stairs. But in that split instance, all of them were taken down. And at the very end, they would then see Deku. As Deku was right now rushing towards Aizawa, Aizawa was about to get punched in the face by the Nomu. However, just as he does, this is when suddenly the Nomu's fist would then be caught. Or more likely, it would be blocked by a katana blade. Now, Deku would actually be surprised as the force of the hit pushed him back a little bit, as Shigaraki as well as the rest of the villains who were there were wondering who this kid was. Now, Shigaraki was confused who this brat was, until finally he ends up looking around and ends up seeing that Kodagiri is captured. "Kodagiri, what are you doing? Get up!" Shigaraki will shout. However, unfortunately for him, Kotogear was knocked unconscious thanks to a genjutsu that Deku had placed on him. Now at this point, Deku will be currently staring down at the Nomu, and right now he couldn't even tell if this thing was even human. Just what is this thing? As he does, the Nomu will then end up shrieking as he tries attacking Deku with a fast punch. Unfortunately for the Nomu, Deku was way faster, as he was known as Shisui the teleporter. So with this, Shisui ends up using a body flicker as he teleports right in front of the Nomu, and with a slash from his katana, he ends up slashing at his brain. However, as he does, the brain will actually end up regenerating, and in fact, it took the blow like a champ, as it would begin to try fighting with Deku, causing him to back off. This thing is way more durable too. What exactly is this thing? At this, the Nomu will be rushing at Deku, charging at him like a beast, while Shigaraki begins to go on a monologue, explaining that Deku stand no chance against the Nomu. Which, by the way, he doesn't know that what's Deku's name, but he's just telling the kid that he didn't stand a chance. Nomu's one of a kind. He's someone who's meant to even destroy the number one hero, All Might. Now, after hearing this will cause most of the people there to actually cheer, while Deku himself was actually realizing the objective of these guys. They weren't here for them. They were here to take down All Might. Now, this would cause Deku to be pissed off as he has to dodge a punch from the Nomu, and as he does, he ends up sweeping with his legs. However, as he does, he realizes that the force of his hit practically did nothing to the thing, causing him to have no choice but to jump away. Dang it! This thing is tough. At this, Deku would jump away, and after getting a few feet, he instantly dashes towards using the fireball jutsu. After creating the hand signs, he then shoots out a generous burst of flame from his mouth, burning the Nomu up to a crisp. Now, this would cause everyone to be surprised, as they had never seen Deku do anything like this. This, of course, coming from his classmate, while Shigaraki was wondering who exactly this kid was, or better yet, what was his quirk. However, as he says this is when Shigaraki begins to explain that attacks like that won't affect Nomu, as Nomu would then suddenly burst through the flames. He doesn't even have a scratch on him. Now, while seeing this, Deku then realizes this thing's immunity to flames, as well as any other physical strength. He realizes this thing is definitely a tank, and will definitely be hard to take down if it wasn't for the fact that he had the Sharingan. As the Nomu would then rush towards Deku, this is when suddenly he ends up activating the Sharingan once again, and as he does, Nomu would then suddenly charge through Deku and end up beating him to a pulp. It will be beating down and attacking Deku over and over again. However, as he does, this is when suddenly he then turns around and sees like multiple Deku all around him. Seeing this, the Nomu's senses will then go haywire as it rushes towards Deku, trying to attack him, and as it does, it's doing nothing more but attacking each one of the Deku, slaughtering them. However, that's when we then turn back to reality. And there, Shigaraki will be watching in horror, as his own men will then be destroyed by Nomu. At this, he'll be calling out to Nomu, trying to give it an order. However, as he does, this is when suddenly the Nomu will then stop attacking one of his allies, or one of the villains, and he then turn his attention onto Shigaraki. Shigaraki's eyes will then go wide as Nomu will then appear right in front of him, as this is when he tries sticking out his hand to activate his quirk, but unfortunately he was too slow. As the Nomu will end up attacking Shigaraki's arm and actually snapping it, causing him to scream out in pain. At this, Nomu would then suddenly punch Shigaraki in the stomach, sending him flying a couple of feet, while Aizawa wasn't able to do anything more but watch in shock. What's going on? At this, Aizawa would be so confused what was going on, until suddenly he ended up seeing Deku, as he ends up walking towards Aizawa, putting a hand on his shoulder. Sorry, I arrived here a little bit too late. I was a little bit too focused on other matters. At this, Deku would then activate the body flicker, returning Aizawa back to where he was, and while doing so, the rest of the students in class are unable to do anything more but watch, as the Nomu was currently beating down on Shigaraki. No. How could this happen? No, you're supposed to listen to me. How is this happening? At this, Shigaraki was so confused what was going on, until finally his eyes would then turn to Deku, who is currently right now staring at him with a cold look. It's your fault, isn't it? You're the reason for this. Damn you. At this, Shigaraki would then suddenly end up seeing an opening, as he would then dash away from Nomu, rushing towards Deku at top speed. He will curse him, saying that it was all his fault for why things were turning out like this, and that this was no longer fun. However, just as he was reaching for Deku would then give him a smirk, as this is when Nomu would then appear right in front of Shigaraki in an instant. As at this point, Nomu was way stronger than Shigaraki at this point, as he would then punch Shigaraki in the face, sending him flying once again. And as he does, Shigaraki will be knocked out unconscious at this point. At this point, the rest of the other villains were actually terrified of this monstrosity as they try running away now. As the Nomu will then turn to the rest of them, Deku will then send a signal. As if you guys want to see like inside the Nomu's mind, so we now turn our point of view to the Nomu's mind, as inside of it we will see that currently right now he was seeing Deku as Shigaraki, and currently right now everyone else was looking like All Might. So due to this, he would instantly charge and go on a rampage, destroying many of the villains, while Shigaraki and Kodagiri were currently unconscious. However, that would then change as this is when Kodagiri would then get up as he pants and like sweats a lot, or at least, I mean, I don't really know how Kodagiri sweats, dude. I don't really want to explain it. But anyway, he was currently right now like in a panic state. At this, he begins looking around until finally he ends up seeing all the chaos that was happening. Nobu slaughtering everyone, and currently right now charging at only the villains, but ignoring the kids, the hero, and Deku. As his eyes land on Deku, he'll be horrified of the child, as inside his mind, he didn't even know what happened. One minute he was just there, ready to activate his plan to, make all the kids get separated, but the next minute, all it took was a single glance at the kid's eyes, and things were wrapped. That boy, he's not normal. We have to escape. At this, Kodagiri would then activate his quirk. Now, this is when suddenly portals would then begin to open up on different locations, causing chaos, but the Nomu was currently right now still attacking all the villains. Now, while doing this, Deku would see all these portals and then focus his attention on Kodagiri. However, by this point, Kodagiri would activate the portal as quickly as possible and try getting away. I have to get away. I have to take Shigaraki as well. As just as he was warping away, though, this one suddenly he then feels pain. As he then slowly turns around, and to his shock, he will see Deku. But there was two of them. What? At this Deku's eyes was cold, and his eyes were flashing red, as the katana that he usually wields was now having an electric glow to it. Sorry to disappoint you, but you're not getting away from me. Now at this point, Kodagiri was not able to do anything, as thanks to this, whatever this thing was, whatever the lightning was generated from, it completely stunned him, making him unable to move. As just as Shigaraki was about to go through the portal, Deku, who was currently watching everything, would then end up teleporting and grabbing him out of the portal and yanking him out. At this point, Shigaraki was unconscious, Kodagiri was captured, and they were unable to do anything. As the Nomu would continue on its rampage, slaughtering everyone, this is when All Might would then arrive. I am here! As he does, he ends up seeing the chaos that was happening as the Nomu was taking care of the villains. He will see Kodagiri, who's currently being held by a different Deku, and he would see Deku himself just holding Shigaraki. Two Midoriyas? What's going on? At this, everyone else was just completely in shock as they couldn't even explain what happened. As this is where we now have another time skip. So we now turn to when the rest of the heroes will then arrive. As they arrive onto the scene of seeing this carnage or just massacre, as by the time the Nomu was finished and taking care of everything, it was just casually sitting there. As Deku would be there making sure everyone's alright, and also holding Shigaraki and Kodagiri captive. Now at this point, they had no idea what was going on. Like they were so confused. But after giving the report from the other students as well as Deku, they ended up realizing the situation and instantly leaped into action. They ended up taking Shigaraki and Kodagiri into custody. As for the villains who had been deceased, unfortunately they aren't able to do anything. They also take Nomu into custody to study it to find out exactly what it is, or like who quirk it is, or really anything about the thing. As with all this, we can now move on to now the present event. So after giving the report, All Might will be there and he will sit down contemplating everything that happened. At this, he got notice about who these two individuals were, what exactly happened, and what exactly that thing was made for, and he was surprised as he realized that thing was meant to, kill him. However, there was something off about it. As after reading the reports that was given by Deku as well as Aizawa, that thing's abilities seemed way out the norm. And also there was a thing that they speculated to have multiple quirks, which caused All Might to shiver at the thought. As there was one deranged man that he knew would definitely thrive at such a research or such a creature like this. He couldn't be. But still from that thing, there's no doubt about it. As All Might was contemplating all this, feeling anger at just the mention of the man, that being All for One, this is when suddenly we will then see Nezu himself as he walks towards All Might, telling him to relax. It's alright, the good thing is all the students are fine and no one was that badly injured. Luckily, young Midori had arrived to save Mr. Aizawa right before that injury became permanent. Now, hearing this, All Might would then nod his head, shaking his head away, like shaking his thoughts about All for One, nodding as he says that young Midoriya truly is something special. However, this is when suddenly silence will then take over the room. His abilities. What exactly are they? At this will cause Nezu to actually look towards the window. I'm not sure. At this point, no, it's said that he is quirkless. He has never been given the ability of a quirk, yet his power and ability shows otherwise. So either one, we have been given false information, or two, someone had just implanted him with that new quirk. Now, just thinking of this, All Might would think that Deku might actually be a disciple for All For One. And just the thought of one of the students of UA being that, All Might would then feel a shiver down his spine. If so, then you know what we must do. But this is when Nezu would then shake his head. Now. You gotta remember this, though. Although young Midoriya's abilities are quite confusing and quite a mystery, there's still something we could actually accept, and that's the fact that in the end of the day, he still saved Aizawa. He still protected his classmates, and he is the one who actually brought in these villains. Now, hearing this, All Might couldn't argue with that logic as he sits down, just stumped about all the mysteries and all these clues that are wandering around, as he realizes it's going to take a while before they can solve anything. But right now, all Might can do is rest assured that the next time trouble like this arises, he will be there for his students. As we now turn to a different location. Right now, sipping down on some fine wine and currently recovering from his past injuries, you'll see All For One. As he currently right now was watching some video camera feed and just casually there while sipping some wine. Now, while he does so, though, this is when suddenly he ends up getting a report from the doctor. I'm sorry to say this, sir, but it seems as if your disciple, as well as one of your best creations, have unfortunately just been captured. Hearing this, All For One's expression of happiness would then falter. Well, that is definitely going to be a problem. At this, All For One was actually relying on Shigaraki. After all, he was quite crucial to his plan. However, that doesn't mean that he didn't have a workaround for this. This may be a setback, but it's something that we can bounce back from. All you have to do is prepare for the day we bring him back. While doing so, we should also get Kodagiri as well. And while saying this, All For One would then stop thinking for a few seconds, before suddenly he ends up speaking once again. Tell me, exactly what are the informations about his capturing, and exactly what was the cause of it? After all, he knew that All Might would be there, but at the same time, with all those villains, as well as just the fact that, Shigaraki had Kodagiri, there was high doubt that All Might could really do all that by himself, unless his strength goes back to his prime. At this point, the doctor says nothing more, as he says that the information about it is kept tight. No one really knows exactly what happened. The information is still being scoured about, pretty much like people telling about the incident of the attack, but no specific details were given. However, this is when the doctor will then explain to All For One that they will be searching as much information as they can, and we'll find out soon enough exactly what was the cause and what exactly went down during the entire event. Now, hearing this, All For One would nod his head, accepting and being satisfied with that answer, as he tells him to report back to him immediately later. As with that, the doctor would then nod his head, leaving, as All For One will be staring into the darkness, or anticipating for the next plan to fix this little setback. How do you guys think that the police are going to keep Deku's information hidden? How do you guys think this is going to happen in the US Sports Festival? And overall, what do you guys think of this part of this What If? It is your host, HD Samurai, and your host is signing off for now, as he is tired. He was formed for 40 minutes, and honestly, I am tired. Yes. But don't worry, your boy's here, going strong, posting videos, you know the norm. And yeah, that's what I just plan to do. So, yeah. Thank you guys so much for your support. Hopefully you guys will continue to show that. And honestly, I got really nothing much else to say, except hopefully you guys have a good day. So with that being said, it's your host, HD Samurai, and he's signing off. Peace, and stay cool.